What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheetsaber, which it feels like it's been, I guess it's been only a week, but it feels like it's been a long time since we've done a show. I guess maybe because we were doing multiples a day for so many months. How you doing, man? What's going on in your world? And what do you think about this week? How was last week? I know it was pretty ugly for both of us, but why don't you fill the people in?
Everything's good. I think what's interesting again is the way sports is kind of, it was so jam-packed for those 6 weeks or however long that was. And then when basketball and baseball kind of dropped off simultaneously, it left us with football. And on the one hand, it's good. It gives me time to do other stuff. Yet on the other hand, it's just, the content just kind of just slows a little bit. And yes, I could certainly, go back to doing the NASCAR and the MMA and stuff, because I am still betting on it. I'm still doing it myself. But I do feel as though if we're going to do that, it was fun for me to do it while there's really literally nothing else to do. Yeah. And when I was doing it for my own benefit, but maybe one day we'll get not that I'm not good, but like an actual expert in that kind of stuff, on there to help. I mean, look, I can make it work by taking takes and figuring out who the low-owned guys and putting portfolios together. Yeah, that's definitely a skill. But to be honest, it'll take the users 20 years to figure out how to do that. You know what I mean? We should probably get, if we're gonna give content on those types of sports. That's why I reached out to your buddy to see if you want to do any tennis or whatever. And again, I want people to learn how to do this stuff for themselves a little bit. So I don't want to be the person that give the actual driver by driver breakdown of NASCAR. I mean, I could do it myself because I just kind of know how to read other people and stuff like that. But in the meantime, we do have the football, and we are going to do. Let's get back to doing the showdown slate on the Thursday.
Yeah.
And what we could probably do on the Monday is do a combination of lineup review.
Yeah.
And Monday showdown, because I do think that the lineup review is really, it's important for me. So I presume it's important for other people.
Yeah, well, I'm into that completely too. I think that it's really helpful, and I think that we've actually had a lot of people interested in that stuff in the past. So I think we should go ahead and keep doing that for sure. You want me to share my? Yeah, go ahead and pull your screen up. Last week was pretty bad for me as well. I keep having these weeks where I'm sort of the core things I'm sort of on, and I'm on the right path, but then I end up a couple places just missing everything. And did you have
Dalvin Cook a decent amount last week or no?
Tons.
Okay.
It's just not enough, not in any of my good lineups. And all of the lineups I played Cook, I tried to get pieces of that game in different ways that just didn't get me where I needed to go, basically.
Yeah, I didn't have that much of him. I had about 15%, which is, it was probably over the field, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So I had a decent amount. I had 15% of him, and just the rest of it just didn't quite get in there. That's the best I can describe it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, yeah, that's sort of how I felt too. Let's take it game by game. I think that's probably the best way to approach this. And these shows, well, even now it's Friday. I have a pretty strong idea of what I might do on this slate, but I think that we figure out a lot during these shows. So I'm actually kind of curious to see where we stand on some of this stuff. And it starts with the first game right here, KC and Carolina. What are your initial thoughts here? Because all I see is the team that's supposed to score the most points at basically no ownership for where they should be. I don't know if I'm gonna beat that, or I'm just thinking that the Chiefs you should be stacking them in a significant portion of your lines if you're multi-entering them every week, in my opinion. I think you're
let's talk about that, but let's talk about something that kind of went kind of sneaky unnoticed with everything else that's going on in football and COVID and election is the return of Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
It was it kind of snuck it past. It was just kind of the news cycle was such that it didn't get a lot of publicity, and boy, oh boy. This is, again, I don't know if he's a great play this week or if he's a good price this week or whatever it is, but you have a guy who, is essentially a PPR, maybe the best PPR running back in the history of daily fantasy sports, right? Yeah. Who's now back in play pretty much every week. And it's going to cause a lot of stress every week. That'll be, remember, before he got injured, that was always the big question is, do you play Christian McCaffrey, right? So I think that's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah, he's usually 10K. The crazy part is, so I think I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that these projections are going to be just way, way wrong on the ownership on him. I think that he's going to be much more owned than people think. But you can kind of see, because everybody's going to play Dalvin Cook this week, or you think they would, they would probably, maybe forget about him a little bit. I like this whole game in general. I'm going to definitely be over the field of whatever it is on McCaffrey just because it's too easy of a spot for him to get there. Like, he can get 25 or 35. He can get up to 35 without even getting in the end zone, like with the amount of targets he gets. He can catch 15 balls for 95 yards or whatever, 100 yards. And, you know, also what he does on the ground running. So I like McCaffrey a lot here. I've heard of a few people worried about maybe his role being a little bit reduced in his first week back. What are your thoughts there? Any worries there?
Yeah. So I really didn't think too much about playing McCaffrey because of that. You know, if he were only 6,800 and whatever it was, you know, he wouldn't be 6,800 obviously, but if he was like cheap, then you could get away with, you know, maybe like from Aaron Jones last night, people were speculating that he wasn't going to get used as much as whatever. They started out using him a lot, and they did pair him back eventually after a while.
Yeah.
But the thing that hit me about this game was the reason why Kansas City is going to be lower owned than maybe quote unquote they should be is the same reason that they were lower owned last week that they should have been. Is this idea, and we talk about this in basketball a lot, right? This idea that the game script and the blowout risk like mitigates the upside of some of these players, and to me, when Kansas City was a 20-point favorite over the Jets, that's what kept their ownership down. Was they're like, well, they're not going to need to score because of whatever, and then the next thing you know, just kind of like wearing a tuxedo without breaking a sweat. He threw 5 touchdown passes,
yep.
Like it's nothing.
Yep.
And only, and just a couple to Hardman, couple to Kelsey, whatever, couple to Hill, whatever he wanted. So Mahomes was like the clear, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure that they were on the winning lineup, right? Or at least close to it.
Yeah.
And so there's no blowout. So there's blowout risk. Whatever. So they're still going to score 28, 35 points. The reason why it's a 20-point favorite is because they can't stop these guys. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe they're not going to pour it on in like a back and forth type like game stack situation. But to say that, I'm not going to play Mahomes or Hill or all these guys because the spread's so high, it's not like basketball in a way. You know what I mean? Like you don't really see these guys really get pulled or the foot off the gas that much in football, So I agree with you. I think that Kansas City is a really, really good play here.
That was the crazy thing. Yeah, up by 20, whatever. They weren't running the ball. They were just throwing the ball every time.
Yeah.
It's a classic Andy Reid thing, too. It's his favorite thing. Then he'll throw these little bubble screens, or he'll have the running back catch a bunch of passes or whatever and use that as their extended running game. And to me, I just think so what's going to happen, Carolina shows up as being a very good team defensively in the secondary. I think they're somewhere in between, like the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit on the positive side. I don't think they're quite as good as they've looked. I think they've had some good matchups, but I think you throw away defense when you play the Chiefs anyway. Carolina's been awful against running backs. This is not something that I would even probably do in 5%, but I think that, I don't know, man, I'm starting to debate this a little bit. I think at some point Le'Veon Bell is going to take this job. I know we disagree on this. I don't think Edwards-Helaire is nearly as explosive, as good as he could be. And I think Le'Veon Bell suits what they want to do offensively. I think they're both probably going to share. 5,100 is probably still not going to get there. But I am going to go heavy on the passing game of the Chiefs is my plan. And I like the run backs on the other side is the long and short of it for me in this game. I don't like Robbie Anderson nearly as much as I like DJ Moore. I'm a little shocked that the ownership's projected as high as they are for these guys. But I think DJ Moore is just, I'll say this over and over again. I think he's a much, much better receiver than people know. And I think that you're going to see a massive game out of him one of these days, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I know he had a disappointing game against Atlanta. I like DJ Moore as the main run back along with McCaffrey. And then you have Mahomes, and I would prefer probably to go with Tyreek Hill over Kelsey here. But I don't mind going Kelsey either. I just like some other tight ends better.
Yeah, we talked about I talked about tight end a couple, over the last couple of weeks, kind of like lamenting the idea that it's basically, and a lot of players, it's basically the same players every week rate to be like the best plays. And just Kelsey is just going to rate to be one of the best plays every week.
Right.
He's just really good. You know what I mean? And Darren Waller is going to rate to be a good play every week. And there's usually like a third guy that becomes like a good play like every week, whether it's Hunter Henry or maybe this week Noah Fant or whatever it is. There's always like a third guy that but it's Kelsey and Waller, for example, for me are always going to be good plays. So he does rate to be, for whatever this is worth, probably my favorite play if you had to pick one. But I don't think you need to pick one. I think that you could you could stack them. I think you play Mahomes with Kelsey and Hill, or Mahomes with Hill and I don't know who's the other, Hardman even. I mean, whatever. I mean, you could definitely mess around, and it's sometimes I don't know. You see, am I overthinking am I underthinking it? One of these days, you mentioned to me before that you want me to share some of my new kind of spreadsheets I've been working on, and one of the things that I've been doing is kind of like ranking teams like stacks by different metrics, by whether they're on raw points, on value, or whatever it is. And Kansas City is rating, whether you be value or whatever, to be like the fourth best stack. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm going too crazy by picking them here.
Right.
I think that they're a really good play.
Yeah, and I think that, look, if you want to get really, really creative in this game, I don't think you need to, but I don't mind the idea if you want to go min cost at one spot to take a shot on a guy like DeMarcus Robinson. He would be the preferred guy for me, not Hardman. But I also think that we just have to, like, Carolina's, they've been chucking the ball around quite a bit, and it's just hard for me to look at the price. You've got I don't know, Samuel's 4.4K, and he's put up 17 and 22 in the last 2 weeks. I'm not saying we should just be a slave to that, but they're going to have to throw the ball a lot more here. Chiefs' main corners are pretty good. I don't know. It's interesting. I think this is like it's a spot where you could throw Samuel into the mix. I'm going to have exposure to everybody who's in contention in this game. I really like this game, and I'm going to sound like this at the beginning of this show and not so much at the end because I really like some of these early games that we're going to get into. Here we go.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that it looks as though the top games are pretty front-loaded to the beginning, kind of like Trump's votes in some of these states.
Exactly.
You have to, that's right. So let's go on to Seattle Buffalo, which I guess I'll let you start with this. This is certainly one of my favorite games.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is the popularity. I think this is, and I'm telling you, it's going to be wrong on John Brown too. Assuming that, our weather's fine and everything, which actually as of right now I have is fine. And they haven't played a good weather game, Buffalo, in the last few weeks. They've been having this wind problem, which they haven't thrown the ball deep, and everybody's criticizing Josh Allen. This is a different situation if you can actually get that out there. Also, we've had injured receivers like John Brown, who's coming back. I mean, he played, but he's, was limited, obviously. At 4.6K, I'm just going to load up on John Brown. I don't care about the recent stuff. I don't care that his injuries have cost him this so far. He's my priority target on the Buffalo side. I love Diggs as well, but he's going to be the popular one. And John Brown at 4.6 is just kind of goofy. DK Metcalf, the best receiver in history of football, is probably a strong play, and I would lean him ahead of Lockett because Lockett's going to be much, much higher owned at 6.8. And I know you could just trade these guys off every week. People say that. But just so you know, I mean, Russell Wilson is on record even saying, like, he was on the Ringer. He's on Bill Simmons' thing, and he said, yeah, DK Metcalf is like Jerry Rice, but bigger and faster. He's got the chance to be the best receiver of all time. And I don't think that's a hyperbole. I don't think it's crazy to think that about him. He reminds me of Julio Jones with more physicality. He makes some mistakes. He doesn't run quite as crisp routes. But I love this guy. So my favorite guys this week, you'll see in a lot of my lineups from this game, will be John Brown and Metcalf.
Any of the running game from either team or no?
It's such a weird situation here. Like, I don't know what to do. I think they want to give Dallas a few carries here. So I just think you just probably stay away. I don't think it's the worst idea if you want to take a shot on Zach Moss because they seem to be favoring him lately. But I just am finding myself going elsewhere for running games.
These two teams ranked first and third on my stacks teams between like Seattle and Buffalo. So it's a very natural game stack type of situation. And yes, they're going to get. Unfortunately, they are going to get a decent amount of ownership. I was going to ask you, and I guess you answered my question of who do you like more between John Brown and Cole Beasley. I guess for you, it's not even particularly close. I mean, you like.
Yeah, I don't think you can play Cole, in my opinion. Like, I get it, and I get the numbers he's put up, but this guy is an underneath receiver that in certain weeks it really made sense to try to attack him. But John Brown didn't play in most of the weeks that he had big games. So
that's fair enough. Okay, that's right.
He's not a home run hitting type of receiver at 5.4. Like maybe if he was like 3.5 or something, I'd consider. Okay. I would play John Brown, and I would play. Well, it's funny though. I would say it's like this though. I expect Cole Beasley to outscore John Brown a good percentage of the time here, maybe even half the time. But when John Brown outscores him, he's going to put up 25, 35 fantasy points. Cole Beasley might put up like 16 or 12 or something. You know what I mean? to 10.
So I like Wilson, Lockett, and Metcalf. I mean, I don't know, Metcalf being the best receiver in football. Yeah, I'll tell you who the best receiver in football is. The best receiver in football is the dude who played last night. I mean, Devontae Adams is freaking crazy right now.
He is amazing, but he's also got Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, who made Jordy Nelson look like the greatest receiver.
That is true. Very, very true.
Very good receiver.
Very true. And probably the best receiver of all time might play 1 or 2 weeks before he gets run out of Tampa. We'll see how the AB experiment works out over there.
Yeah, no. And by the way, just to say,
I know what you mean.
Russell Wilson is also a great quarterback. Also, I want to say that, like, it's not that Metcalf's putting up the numbers. It's just that I watch this guy and I don't see how people cover him. That's why I was saying that.
So to summarize, I mean, we both like this game. I will stress, by the way, I haven't finished. Obviously, I haven't finished yet my cash game one, but as of now, I can't imagine not having Josh Allen as my quarterback in my 2+2 thing. So just to throw that out there, he's going to be my quarterback there.
Lockett would be the cash play, by the way, of the two, right? Like, Lockett's obviously the cashy play. If you're going to play, if you're going to play the receivers from this game, I think Lockett is your cash play.
Yeah, and it's funny. We'll get to these guys later, but I'm not going to get to any of them in my cash game stuff. It's kind of strange, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But obviously this is a really, really good game. I don't know what the weather is going to be. Just because I see Buffalo, but it looks sunny. It's fine. It's like 60 degrees here, so I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Yeah, it looks all right to me. And the thing that worries me about this game, just if there is anything, is that I do think that while both defenses are bad, I don't think they're as bad. I don't think Buffalo is as bad as they've looked, and that is sort of the talk is about them. So just keep that a little bit in mind, that maybe it's not quite as quite the shootout that everybody hopes, but it's hard to ignore this game, and it's just you're going to deal with some pretty heavy ownership.
Okay, so let's get on to the other game that always seems to attract a lot of attention is Atlanta whenever they play.
Yeah.
It's a little weird though, right? I mean,
they've been good defensively lately. What's going on?
That's what I'm saying. And it's also like a little weird. Like is like Drew Lock and Noah Fant, and Melvin Gordon, are these guys like going to be chalk? I mean, like, is that actually going to happen because of the Atlanta matchup? I guess. I personally, right now think that both those receivers, Judy and Fant, are good point per dollar plays. I mean, that's for sure. I'll tell you what I like. My second favorite stack actually is Atlanta. Just to let you guys know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not going to get any fancy. I'm not going to be fancy at all. Well, maybe a little fancy. So I like Julio and Ridley, and I also like Hayden. I also like Hayden Hurst. So I like them. And what I might do is I'll stack that part of it and run it back with the cheap, with the Judys and the Fants or something like that. So, yeah. And yet on the other hand, you kind of alluded to this. I'm kind of going to be super overweight, I think, on the Falcons defense in this spot. They're sneaky. They're not bad. They're aggressive. And who died and left Drew Lock freaking Roger Staubach? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So Atlanta's one of my top defenses. And yet at the same time, I like this. I like this game. Maybe I'll be underweight on the Denver side if Denver becomes too popular. Maybe that's what I'm going to end up doing.
I'm actually surprised at the ownership not being a little bit higher projected for Denver. I thought initially we were going to be looking at pretty high owned Judy and Patrick, or some ownership of Patrick.
You don't think they're going to be?
I don't think Judy and Patrick. I think Judy will be a little more popular than Patrick, but I don't think people are going to play Tim Patrick. I mean,
Patrick, I didn't forgot about him.
Like, yeah. I mean, anyway, I either one of those two guys I think are both firmly in play there. As along with KJ Hamler, by the way, it's a weird situation because it makes more sense as a stack than it does to want to play individuals outside of Noah Fant for me. I do like Noah Fant. I'm always on the Noah Fant train. I think I think he's decent, and I don't trust Drew Lock entirely, so I think he'll rely on him a lot. I don't know what I want to do here. I really don't.
I have a dumb question. Are tight ends and pass catching running backs actually still really great against Atlanta, or is it just kind of us thinking they are from like a year or two ago?
No, it's not just a year or two ago, but it hasn't been the same in the recent weeks, that's for sure. And then they had some good ones too with Carolina, but they also played Detroit in one of those games. They played, they had Minnesota without Dalvin Cook. You know what I mean? So we don't really have a great feel for it entirely. And the truth is, though, their defense just hasn't. I mean, you look at the teams that have lit them up this year. You got Green Bay, 30 points. That's not even that crazy for Green Bay. That's actually an underperforming game for Green. Dallas, when they had Dak, scored 40 against them. Green Bay Seattle put up 38 against them. But then you got they're just sort of against these not great offenses. They've been pretty good. And I kind of like your Atlanta idea. I don't think I'm going to play Matt Ryan, but I think that playing Julio Jones is a terrific pivot off of the Seattle situation. I mean, this guy, they're looking for him. Julio looks like the old Julio. And I always have made the argument that if you had to, while Antonio Brown might have been the best receiver I always thought he was, I would say that Julio Jones would be the receiver I would want more than any receiver in football, because I think he does everything perfectly. And they really are utilizing him. If he gets in the end zone either of the last 2 weeks, he's probably another 600 or 1,000 more, maybe even on DK, because he could be putting up 30 every week with the way that they're targeting him. And I love the Julio play more than anything.
And the problem, by the way, and the reason, I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, the reason why it's difficult to play Ryan again, and this is now a macro thing with quarterbacks, is that as long as you have 4 or 5 elite running quarterbacks in every slate, you know what I mean? Like Allen, Kyler Murray, Watson, even Mahomes to some extent. It's just kind of hard to play these drop back quarterbacks and expect them to score the 35 points needed to win the slate. So that I guess that's one of the reasons why it's hard to play Ryan, and that situation is really not going to change anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely. But if you do,
your volume, you got to come back.
Sorry about that. Atlanta, to me, I just want to say as a straight bet. I can't believe I can't say it. I can't bring myself to actually say the words. I was going to say as a straight bet, I think Atlanta's a good bet in this game at giving up 4 even. But it's so hard for me to say that with Atlanta because they could be up by 20 in the third and fourth quarter, and I still don't know if they're going to cover the 4 because that's what they do. Anyway, I think we're done with that one pretty much. I like this game, but I don't have I guess that I'm sort of like with the field, which feels kind of gross because I like all these guys. I just don't know how much realistic I'm going to get of them. The only one I really, really like a ton is Fant and Julio. So that's where I'm at.
And you did see, by the way, just this might not actually be where I end up going, but right now, just again, when I do my cash game stuff at the beginning, is really just my favorite point per dollar plays and just see where they kind of like play out. You know what I mean? And Judy and Fant rate to be really good plays. So I have no problem with you guys playing them. And if you tell me that, or if it turns out that ownership just goes somewhere else and these guys aren't that popular somehow, then I think that you can really stack the game up and be and be in business.
Absolutely. I mean, my first builds actually, I do have some Drew Lock combinations with in my build, in my first builds. But I've sort of come around and I've looked back at some of those Atlanta games and I mentally, just even as I look back at it now, I remember all of these games because Atlanta, we always target against them. And they just have been a little better than we thought. And I think maybe there's better spots of this week. So we'll see where the ownership ends up on that one. That will dictate some of it for me as well. All right, Baltimore, Indiana.
Yeah, I had zero. So tell me if you like anything.
Great game, right?
Yeah.
And we get it every week with Baltimore. All right, I think we have to consider Marcus Johnson. It's just a minimum cost receiver that's been a little bit active. I've heard some buzz around it that they want to get him more involved. We have no T.Y. Hilton. There's a lot of things you could like about him other than it's not a good matchup, but he is $3K. Now, is he a better play than DeMarcus Robinson? I don't think so. Is there more upside? Probably, maybe. There's a chance he takes, look, I'm assuming that T.Y. is going to be out, right? At least I've got a projection for him. I thought he was going to be out. My bad.
I had him as questionable. They said something about having the Friday practice dictate something.
Let's see.
Yeah, I didn't even honestly. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't even consider this Marcus Johnson. I didn't even realize that there was a legit chance that I'd have to worry about looking at the receivers here. So I got to look at it.
If there's no T.Y. Hilton, that I would look at Marcus Johnson. That's it. I don't really want to go do anything else with this game. I think both of these defenses are really good, and I'm with you on everything else. If there was ever a creative play you were going to make somewhere else, it's just probably worth noting that Philip Rivers definitely looks a little more comfortable when with Naheem Hines out there, but I don't think I'm going to end up going there. I'm not going to play Gus Edwards, even though, or J.K. Dobbins, even though I could see the argument, sort of like a Justin Jackson-ish type of argument for either of those guys, but not too tough a matchup for me.
All right, you want to move on?
Yeah, so this is interesting because we're going to talk about a game now that was your favorite game a few weeks. It kind of let down a little bit, but there was some good production from it. We had the same matchup in Houston earlier with Jacksonville, and another one of these spots where, you know, you expect some ownership on some of the running backs. You expect Will Fuller to get a little bit of love. But overall, it's sort of getting a little bit, again, sort of maybe a little bit, the ownership sort of spread out again this week. So what is your sort of level of interest? I know you always love to play Desean Watson. I think he's going to be the most popular player in this game, possibly, actually, which is weird. Where are you at with him? Where are you at with?
Yeah. So Watson would be my third favorite quarterback if I had to rank them. It would be Allen, then Kyler Murray, and then Watson. It's a weird game because Jacksonville is rolling out Jake Luton or something like that.
Right.
So I really didn't have a lot of interest in much of this at all, honestly. I mean, I don't know if this Jake Luton business. I'm just not. I don't know. I'm just not particularly interested. I do like David Johnson on the Houston side. Now, again, I guess from the tone of your comments, I guess that's not going to be particularly sneaky. But I like David Johnson on the Houston side, and I mean, honestly, I didn't have a lot of interest. So here's my question about Will Fuller. I saw okay. So I was saying I was going to comment that there was possible trade talk with Will Fuller, and if that were the case, I would not expect them to, roll him out there for extended targets and usage if they didn't have to. But it seems as though that those talks kind of broke down, so that doesn't.
Can we have a quick conversation about what the hell Houston, just really quick, what the hell are they doing with their franchise? You got Desean Watson, who's probably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. You had the best. Okay, we've made this argument for other best receivers, but you could certainly argue that DeAndre Hopkins has been the most productive receiver over the last 3 years of anybody. And why are they trading him? Why are they talking about trading Fuller now?
Why are they doing that? I mean, and it's funny because
that David Johnson trade was one of the worst. I mean, it was one of the dumbest things I've seen a team do. It reminded me of Mookie. I love David Johnson, who he was 5 years ago, but they took a chance on this guy, and not only does he have to be that, he has to be that for a while because it's not like Hopkins is old.
Well, and this is kind of the way I look at things and look at life in general, is when people do stuff that you don't understand, there's like two ways to think about it. One way is like, oh my God, these guys are idiots. And the other thing I think about, I always try to think about this is, okay, they did this, doesn't make any sense. These guys they own and run billion-dollar football teams. They're probably not complete morons. What is it that I'm missing, right? That's kind of the way I look at whenever it feels so weird, you know what I mean? And I can only speculate. Maybe there's some, mad scientist Philadelphia 76ers salary cap thing.
Can I interject? Because I actually feel like I know the answer on this one, so I don't want to. I think it's the coach GM situation, and I think it's them wanting to try. They got too cute and they didn't like Hopkins, and I think that they wanted to be the ones who were in charge of the franchise and not have seeming like that he was going to be and that he was going to hold them ransom for when his contract is up. I've heard a lot of things just about them, the people on the Texans despising the front office. I don't know how real that is, but I've heard it on a number of different podcasts. I've heard people talk about it quite a bit. And I don't know what level that played into this, but everything I hear from them makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. And I'm not saying that I agree with your way of looking at it, but I think this is a team that they gave up a chance at a team that could have maybe been on its path to being a Super Bowl contender in a couple years. And now they're like one of the worst teams in football. It doesn't really, or just not a below average team, let's say.
Like, is there stuff that, and I know the football's like way behind basketball and baseball with respect to Moneyball and kind of like, math driven personnel decisions and things like that. But is football going to come down one of these days? Like, because that's what I was thinking at the beginning when they did that. I'm like, okay, there's got to be some salary cap thing that's going on where they're going to just dump their players and rebuild like the Sixers did or something like that.
Maybe there is something else that's beyond.
I don't know. Maybe football's just a bunch of idiots. You know what I mean? That's very possible too.
I do think the ownership groups. It depends on which you are. Like, obviously, Robert Kraft is really the Patriots. He owns he owns other businesses. The Patriots are his number one priority. Anybody whose owner is your team is your number one priority, it's always, in my opinion, it's almost always a good sign unless you're like James Dolan or something like that. But I mean, for the most part, anyway, I don't want to get way off on a tangent on this. I just don't understand running franchises. To me, like, this team wasn't that far off last year and the year before. And then you just sort of broke it all up. That's the part I didn't understand entirely. But
so I guess back to the game. I mean, I really didn't give this game a lot of thought. Like, I had the Texans as my second-rated defense. You know, seems to make sense because they're against a rookie quarterback with no weapons. I mean, I shouldn't say no weapons, with limited weapons. And I guess you could play Robinson if you want for Jacksonville, or you could play David Johnson. But I don't know, the whole game I really didn't have a lot of interest in it at all.
Yeah, I like Robinson. It's a little weird to and I understand the David Johnson thing. I'm just not doing it myself.
Yeah.
I do think Brandon Cooks is in play. I just don't know how much of him I'm really going to get to.
What is he now? Is he still under 5K?
5,500. But he's been producing. I mean, he's been really good lately. And he put up 30 against these guys last time, 160 yards.
What about Cobb coming off of 10 targets?
Yeah, I thought about that.
Oh, but we're idiots, by the way. How did we not play Cobb and Packer Revenge? How did we not do that?
I think that most of those targets were when the game was out of hand at the end.
I don't know about that.
I think so. I mean, the game was a blowout. It wasn't like it was
even more to the point. You know what I mean? Like, even more of a reason why they're going to give him the ball. I mean, like.
Yeah. Fair enough. I guess that's true. I mean, not that he wouldn't have won it for us. Unfortunately, they wouldn't have.
No, I know, but when he caught the ball. Yeah. Seriously, he caught the ball. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you get into the individual plays, but I mean, Houston plays so many wonky kind of games that I wouldn't ever mind if you wanted to get a different stack to go to this game. But that's where I'm at.
Okay, so you want to go on to COVID Central here with the Detroit? So, first of all, again, you know what? We haven't done this in a while, so we got time. Whatever. I could wax poetic a little bit. I'll tell you, the NFL is just really over it with respect to COVID. They are done trying to manage it. They are just going to play, and that's just it. You know, if someone tests positive, they'll say, okay, we're going to test you 10 more times until we think you're negative, and then we're going to let you play. Or remember at the beginning, they're like, when Cam was out, they shut down the whole team and whatever it is. Now San Francisco literally lost their whole team. And they're like, I don't care, let's go. It's Thursday Night Football. We're not giving anybody a break. Everybody's just gonna have to freaking play. And then they go and say, well, the health of our people is the most. Yeah, okay. I really am just not the slightest bit interested in what the NFL is doing. I'm just kind of glad that I'm not part of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so Stafford C-19, and they're like, technically has to be 5-day protocol, but then they're like, well, Sunday's close enough, we'll let him play. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of what's going on. Nonetheless, I honestly don't know if he's going to play or not. They say he might be eligible. They say he's actually playing. Who the hell knows? But Galladay is out, right? If I'm not mistaken. And
Galladay's out.
He is out. So I'm just going to just come out there with this. You know, there are these teams that I kind of, rattled off as like good stacks or whatever. I'm just going to say, now, first of all, Dalvin Cook is going to be, it's going to rate to be the best play on the slate. He's going to be just, let's own through the roof. I'm just going to say that for whatever reason, the Minnesota passing game comes up in my models a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try a little bit of it. I'm going to play Jefferson and Thielen and Cousins. And while, maybe Detroit's smart enough to stack the box, you know what I mean, against Dalvin Cook. And if Dalvin Cook becomes like 100% owned, which he probably should be, but whatever, who cares? Yeah. Then I think the Minnesota passing game is a pretty decent leverage spot over that. So that's pretty much my opinion. No, I really don't have a run back for Detroit. I really don't. You want to try Marvin Jones or Hopkinson, or who's the running back? The Swift. I don't know if he's playing. I guess he is.
Yeah, he's supposed to be.
Yeah. But I think the Minnesota receiving game is a little sneaky here.
Love the call in the Minnesota receiving game. They're just not going to get ownership. They can't because the other games we already talked about these other great receiving spots. Thielen will have ownership. Some. Jefferson will have 0. So you can go to Jefferson very easily and feel good about it, by the way. This is a great spot. This is a great spot. I mean, like really great. Detroit's defense and secondary is awful. And I know people have beaten them up on the ground. The truth is that it's just an awful secondary. I love the idea of playing their passing game. I don't even mind if you want to throw in a little Irv Smith. I would never play Cousins personally in this spot, but unless he was 5K.
Same thing we talked about, yep.
Which is exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, but I wouldn't even mind. Like, I could even see playing Irv Smith with Thielen in a lineup, maybe or maybe not running it back with somebody from Detroit, which would probably be, even though he's going to be popular-ish, Marvin Jones, but you don't need to worry about that because you're already playing these other guys. So you play these guys with Marvin Jones, and I think you could get a really good result here. Or you play Marvin Hall on the other side as the cheapo. He's going to be the more popular than Amendola, but one of those two guys, probably Hall would be the better home run hitting threat, I guess. And then boom, you've got it sort of made there. Like I love that. You can play Jefferson and Thielen. You can play Thielen, you can play Jefferson and Irv Smith and Marvin Hall. Get a little mini stack going. It's a really interesting spot. I think both of these defenses are bad. Assuming Stafford plays, all this is, by the way. Even if Stafford doesn't play, and even whether he does or doesn't, I still also, having said all that, like the Vikings defense. Remember, we're not trying to get people to score a few points. We're trying to get someone to make mistakes. Stafford will sling it sometimes, especially if they're projected as an underdog. The Vikings defense has been awful, but have guys on the roster who can get pressure on the quarterback. So I like the Vikings defense at this price, and I don't even mind the Lions defense at this 2.3K either. As gross as they've been, but they're just so cheap. They're sort of the cheap defense I'm using. But I love the passing game. And again, even though I want to fade Cook and I like all the ideas and stuff, and I'm going to have to do it because I'm a tournament player, it's hard for me to ignore him. It's tough. I don't know what you do here. You're supposed to, like, he's the most obvious cash game play in history, I think, right? Like, what do you do? So yeah, I'm gonna have 30% at least of Dalvin Cook. I just don't know if I'm gonna end up at 30 or 75.
All right, so Giants Washington. I actually have an opinion on this. So with respect to the game, and it's gonna translate to my take on a couple of DFS guys. I know what you're gonna say. Oh, here comes Eric. You're gonna take Terry McLaurin again, okay? And yeah, I do like McLaurin. He's fine.
That's okay though.
No, he's fine. I'm not gonna take Darius Slayton. So here's my thoughts. And I've been watching the Giants a lot recently, mostly because I've been fading them. I've been playing teams against them in Survivor or rooting for them in teams against Survivor. So I've been watching.
They've been on like every evening showdown slate thing.
Yeah. So here, and this is the way I think about sports. And again, right or wrong, I've been doing this for 20 years. This type of analysis is teams just cannot continue to put up efforts week after week after week. And so the Giants, like, they've been just so dead game every week. Like, they played the Rams. They were within 1 point of the Rams going into the fourth. They played Philadelphia. They were up like 14 points to Philadelphia going into the fourth. This past week, they were ahead of Tampa going to the fourth. They just try hard every freaking week. And I think they just can't do that. I think Washington kills them. I do. I think Washington buries them. Washington's been sneaky good. I think the one game they lost, it was actually the Giants on like a 1 point conversion or something a couple of weeks ago, 2 point conversion. I think Washington just destroys them. So I think it could be another Antonio Gibson week. I think that at 5,800, I don't know I really don't know what kind of ownership he's going to get. Quite honestly, he doesn't project to be that great, but whatever. I think it's a really, really good play, and I like the Washington defense. Here's the deal. For as bad or as turnover prone as everybody thinks Daniel Jones is, he really is the worst. Okay, like for all the turnovers he makes, I'm telling, because I've been watching this, they're like 3 missed pick sixes that other teams could have had over the last 3-4 weeks. He really is the worst when it comes to that. So I think Washington is just kind of like I don't know what their price is, whatever.
They're expensive. They're 3,400 on DraftKings.
Yeah, so they're expensive, relative to some of these other teams. But I really do have that opinion. I think that Gibson's a great play. I do look on a point per dollar play. I do like McLaurin, but I'm really into Gibson. I'm really into Washington defense, and nobody from the Giants.
Yeah, so I'm struggling here. I forgot to get into you earlier. Baltimore's defense is right there with Washington's to be my along with my favorite, and they're the same price basically. The Ravens are down to 3.5K. I didn't mention them against Indy earlier, but I love to go against Rivers because the guy loves to throw sixes, and I'm just not going to get away from that. But the Giants, it's the same thing. This is what we want to do. We want to try and target Danny Dimes, and this is a defense that can put a lot of pressure on. They've
Yeah.
got a lot of. I mean, Washington is trending actually like in the right direction. If they can find a quarterback and figure something out there, they've got some real talent. So I'm into the Gibson and Washington defense play, both of them. I don't know how much Gibson I'll end up with, but I certainly support it. And I don't mind if you want to play the Giants defense on the other side. Kyle Allen will make mistakes as well. So either way, I'm okay.
Yep. All right, you want to move on?
Yep.
So Tennessee, Chicago. I like the Titans defense, and I like both running backs. I like Montgomery, and I like Derrick Henry. Now again, I'm not playing Tennessee defense with Montgomery, okay, but that's who I kind of like out of this game. I think that I'm not saying anything earth shattering. I think both those running backs are going to garner ownership. But I do like them both, and Tennessee rates to be, as I mentioned, like one of my top 5 defenses. And aside from that, I really wasn't going to get to much else.
No wonder no one's going to play McCaffrey, which is really bizarre. But that's interesting because everybody, got Henry there too, is going to be popular. I won't play David Montgomery, I don't think, on DraftKings. I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this game with him. I do like him on FanDuel where he's a more significant savings. And he's more that type of running back. Although lately he's been catching passes more this year. That's largely because Tariq Cohen has been out, and I guess he'll still go that way. So he does have that going for him. I have never seen – so he leads the NFL in broken tackles, David Montgomery. I've never seen a guy look less quick and less explosive. He breaks these tackles, then he has nowhere to go. I mean, yeah. It's kind of grim to me. So I'm not going to get heavy onto it. I would rather take a shot with Antonio Gibson on DraftKings. I mean, David Montgomery has been playing every down, and he's not – he still hasn't scored 20 fantasy points in a game this year. Not that he can't against Tennessee, but I don't think it's like the dream matchup that people are making it out to be. So I'm personally going to be high on him on FanDuel, higher on him in FanDuel where he matters more price savings, and then I understand the liking of Henry. I don't know realistically. We've talked about some other running backs that I like, and I don't know that I want to prioritize them over those guys.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. But again, another guy who I like better on FanDuel because the lack of PPR. So both these running backs are guys to me I would rather play on FanDuel. I guess to put it that way. Nothing else. Oh, we have to mention one other thing in this game because I'm on this kid. I want my victory lap when it starts coming through, and he'll be my 10% guy until he whatever.
Mooney.
Yep, I played him last week and against the Saints in that spot in that the game that people got afraid of because of the weather. But I got a little too cute by playing the other side of the Saints cheap receiver also, but. I did play a lot of Mooney last week, and I think that this guy is really trending in the right direction. I'm telling you, that game he had against the Rams on Monday night a few weeks back, he's showing his 4 missed targets. There also was 2 holdings, and I believe it was what was the other one? It was some other a pass interference too for like 50 yards. He could have scored like a million touchdowns if Nick Foles even just threw the ball right. He's explosive. They seem to be looking to him more and more, especially with the attention that gets focused on Robinson. So I don't know how much of him I'm going to end up with this week or if I'm going to need to do that, but he is a guy who's on my list right now, and he's definitely going to be in 10% of my lineups. He's one of the 10%ers going forward, just sort of an Antonio Gibson when he was cheap kind of a thing.
One other thing I would mention is that, Corey Davis, I'm not playing this week, but I wanted to say that there was going to come a time where Corey Davis kind of emerged as a good receiver, because he's got talent, and the days of you being able to play him at 3,800 or whatever it used to be is just kind of gone. Now, again, those last 2 weeks are a little bit off because the environment that he had in the last 2 games, which is just not an environment he's going to be in this week. It's just not
right.
okay.
But I like that pointing out of that. It's a good point about Corey Davis. Like, people are very quick to give up on these young guys. Corey Davis was a top prospect, like 2 years ago was a top incoming receiver. He's still a monster of a man, and he has got a ton of speed. There's no reason why, like you said, we shouldn't be seeing maybe the real Corey Davis come out. He actually has a lot of similarities to AJ Brown, by the way, on the same team. So I agree with you there. It actually I think AJ Brown is going to be less desirable for me going forward because I agree with you about Davis.
All right, so you get to these later games, and
this is where the ownership.
Honestly, these games are good too. These next 2 games I think are really, really strong, and I don't know if they're going to be, I won't say be overlooked or whatever, but I think 2 of these next 3 games are really, really playable. I guess we'll start with Vegas, LA, and keep forgetting like, who's in LA, who's in Vegas, who's the Raiders. I've lost track of who's
What
where.
is going on? And San Diego Chargers are playing the Oakland Raiders. Oh, no. Sorry.
Yeah, right? Who knows? The Clippers against the whatever it is.
Cheech, it throws me off, and I have to say, one last thing. Not that they've moved out of division, so it shouldn't affect me like this, but for some reason, I find myself since the Raiders comes up LVR, I always have them in my head as the earlier game. So I keep playing my players wrong and having my flex spot wrong when I play the Raiders guys. Just wanted to throw that out there, but it makes no sense because there's not another LV team. It throws me off every time I see it. Anyway, keep going.
So this is, I guess, my second favorite game of the afternoon slate. I mean, I suppose but it's good because I know exactly what I would play on either side. You know what I mean? Like I like Josh Jacobs and Waller from the Raiders, and Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry from the Clippers, so to speak. And I think Herbert's got enough rushing upside where I could use him and maybe like even Mike Williams is always in play. You know what I mean? So I think this game is very much in play, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the Mike Williams will be the low-owned part of this game that you get. You can also get Ruggs on the other side at low ownership or Aguilar. I don't think I'm going to do any of that. I think I'm going to play the guys who are going to be popular in this game, and you just mix it in with some of the other things. We mentioned the Minnesota situation if you want to do that. This is going to be the chalk, in my opinion, to some extent.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, between both tight ends, I think you'll have almost 30% of the ownership of all tight ends. So that's already big. Keenan Allen should be one of the top 5 most popular receivers, and Herbert will be one of the 3 or 4 most popular quarterbacks. So
okay,
do with that with what you will. The thing that's going to get ignored in this game is you mentioned Mike Williams. I think Justin Jackson is a really good tournament play, like a really, really, really good tournament play. Another guy I switched on him last week in my bad lineup, so he saved me a little bit of money, even though it didn't save me enough. But and he was just solid. He was good. He's 17 for 89. But he's getting more of the work right now. And I know the Chargers are going to mess with us, okay? They're going to make us furious. They're going to make us confused. They're going to – why aren't you – we're going to run Josh Kelly. We're going to run Pope. We're going to run – you know what? Instead of Pope, now you like Pope, we're going to run Kelly. If you look at the staggering difference between these guys' carries from game to game, it's really hard to figure out what the Chargers are doing. I don't understand it entirely. And it probably leads to why they're such a bad football team with so much talent on their team. But Justin Jackson, in my opinion, is the most talented of these guys, although the other ones are talented too. It's a very running back-friendly system. If he can get up to those 20 touches again in this matchup, you might be looking at an explosion possibility. What if he can get in the end zone twice? This is going to be a high-scoring back-and-forth game. So I love Jacobs. I love Waller. I love Keenan Allen. I love Hunter Henry. But Justin Jackson is probably my favorite low-owned part of this game. It just takes a lot of balls to do it because we don't know who the hell they're going to give the ball to. They don't. They have so many. They rotate between these 3 guys, and you don't know who's going to get double touches. I mean, Tremaine Pope came out of nowhere last week.
Yeah.
But he is. I'm telling you, Justin Jackson. The guy's explosive. I mean, he was supposedly going to take the job before from Austin Eckler or from Melvin Gordon before Eckler, even when Eckler was there. Like, I mean, he's got talent. So just keep an eye out for him.
So I have like a dumb question because it just you know what? It just kind of hit me. Not hit me, whatever it is. I guess these guys are going to be on this. There's no way that Miami, Arizona goes low on, right? And that's not possible, right?
No.
Okay. Right. I was just
well, okay. Let's say it like this. There's parts of it that is possible. So Chase Edmonds is going to be pretty highly owned, right?
Right.
I don't mind that as a fade, to be honest with you. Like, we talked about a lot of other good running backs, and I like Chase Edmonds in general. I'm a big Chase Edmonds guy, but you got the big price hike. You know what I mean? It's not always a situation where they always just give every carry to somebody else when the other guy's out. They might give, Benjamin and Jonathan Ward. You're always a running back could always get a touchdown snaked away from you. He's never put up I guess he actually has last year, but I don't know if he's put up a 35-point game. And then you've got Laird on the other side at 4K. I don't know, man.
I'm gonna. I just again. I don't know why this just hit me. This really should or could be like welcome to the NFL Tua, like 5 touchdown passes and God knows what. I don't know. I mean, if there's a time to do it, like throw him in a dome against a pace team, gonna give him a lot of slings at it. And Arizona's kind of like the old Loyola Marymount. They really don't care too much if you score on them because that means they get the ball quicker. Maybe. I don't know. Devontae Parker's showing up in all my stuff, and Preston Williams is showing up in all my stuff. Preston Williams is like my cash wide receiver right now.
That's a nerve-wracking
they're going to be owned. They just have to be. It's like too easy, I suppose. So, yeah, I like the game a lot. I'm not – listen, I don't want to get into the other touts. I'm not playing Patrick Laird. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, so I was going to play Matt Breida. I don't know if Matt Breida – I don't think he's going to play. So I currently have Laird in some lineups because I had to do a swap because I think Laird will play, and we don't know Laird is going to play, and we don't know if Breida is going to. I do think Breida would be a strong play if he was playing here. I actually like him. I think he would be the better one. I think he'd get more of the work. He was the guy I was looking at early in the week, but he's obviously that's not in play as much anymore. So I'm not that into Laird myself either. I think you're using up a pretty good running spot. We've mentioned a lot of good ones on this slate. What is his upside entirely, Patrick Laird? Like he has to get in the end zone probably a couple times to him to really get past. Well, I guess he get 20 if he doesn't, which is good for 4K. But it's a lot to ask for to even get there, and we don't even know that how the carries are going to shake out for him.
Are we really? Listen, I know that
Isn't Jordan Howard get just as much work? Isn't Jordan Howard a better play?
Well, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, I know Jordan Howard's like the guy everybody likes to hate, and Patrick Laird is everybody's little, cutesy little shiny new toy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But are we real? I mean, we're really going to just go play Patrick Laird at 4K as opposed to Jordan Howard at 4K? We're that sure that Miami is just going to say, okay, with no Baskin, no Gaskin, no Breida, and Jordan Howard, we're really going to give like 70% of the carries to Patrick Laird? Is that actually going to happen?
I'll dig into this one a little bit further, and I'm sorry not to have the answer, but I really do need to find out a little more on this because you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The only thing is Laird has been there, some continuity, I guess you could say that. But, yeah, I mean, I've been saying this Tua game is going to happen at some point, and this is a good seeming spot for it. I just want to point out that both these defenses, I think, are better than people think they are. So – that's where I have a little bit of pause.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, I think Arizona, they're actually my top rated defense actually. Arizona. So
I don't have them quite that high, but
although the Vikings are sneaking up there, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm more interested. I'm just going to go this way for now. Like I'm more interested in the Arizona side of this than I am the Miami side. Not forgetting yet. Let's skip Edmonds and use the passing game. I'm going to have some. You know me, I'm going to play Murray's every week, basically, even if I think the defense is good. I just think the guy he's a video game, and he can break 270-yard runs in a game. Flip a slate completely upside down. So, I'm going to go with I'll take him to DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't think it's going to be very popular considering like what it could be. Hopkins will probably be 10% owned because of the other expensive players that everyone's going to have to play. It's going to be hard to get him in. And then I think you'll see Hopkins with some Williams on the other side, some Parker. But for me, it's mostly going to be Williams and Hopkins with some Parker. The weird one, I have some love for Vasecki I think he's a good athlete, and they weren't really given a chance to develop a rhythm last week between him and Tua. So maybe Vasecki as a weird way to get really low owned parts of this game, like. Argument's sake, this game happens 2 months ago, and we have the same situation. Mike Vasecki is the most popular player on the slate.
Well, I don't know about that.
He was running at 20% ownership at 5.5K back then.
Okay.
And this is Arizona, a team that has never been able to cover the middle of the field.
Right.
And I mean, he's a monster of an athlete, and what's a quarterback's best friend? A rookie quarterback is a tight end. So that's and he's a part of their development thing. They want to see what they have there in Miami. The narrative fits a little bit, like for a little Tua to Vasecki. Maybe I'll do that in some of my millionaire makers. I actually think it's kind of interesting. All right, Chief, you can go on if you want to.
The Pittsburgh-Dallas game, it provides a very interesting anomaly, which I'll throw it out there, and you guys can pause the video to think about this quiz in a minute. But it's a unique anomaly in that the defense on one team is a higher price than the quarterback on the other team. So you have the Steelers defense at 4,900, and the Dallas quarterbacks, no matter who's starting, are all going to be under 4,900, which you don't see all too often. So for those of you that are interested, and you think of the last time that happened, it could have been before this, but I remember it like it was yesterday. The last time it happened, everybody can pause for a second, okay? I feel like you think about it. It was a couple of years ago when that guy from the Bills who threw a pick six every time he threw the ball, Peterman, I think his name was.
Peterman.
Yeah, they were playing the Chargers, and I think it was a similar situation where the Chargers
five picks in the first half, 2 pick sixes.
Something like that, yes. So it was an interesting thing. Now, I don't have it in me, I think, to play a lot of this game, but hey, you know what? You could certainly play James Conner. They're a 100-point favorite, and I certainly have no problem with doing that.
Yeah, I get it. I have a totally different – I have one thing that I had from the beginning of my day.
Go for it.
Who I started with, and I'm just going to hold it up for the screen. Can you read that?
Pittsburgh.
Receivers.
Right.
Scribble thing. The first thing I wrote down when I started looking this week.
Okay.
You have a team that's just absolutely getting annihilated through the air in Dallas every week. Annihilated. Not to mention they're not going to be able to move the ball. Pittsburgh could use a little get-right game for Ben. Everybody's like, oh, they're not throwing it the way they used to. They don't have this anymore. Well, look at some of the teams they've played. And I know that people say Tennessee's defense sucks and all this stuff, and I know they threw it 49 times in that game. That was a weird game, actually, in general. But I think they actually do want to throw the ball a little bit more. That was a tough game they had against Baltimore last week. I think you're going to see Roethlisberger. I'm not going to play Roethlisberger. I'm not looking for a stack like that. I'm looking to get 3 receivers that are just way too low owned and just be way, way, way over the field on all of them. And I'm mixing all of them. Deontay Johnson is the best one. The problem is he's probably going to get hurt in the first quarter again. But I honestly have to say, I can't turn off this Juju Smith-Schuster thing. Like, I think that he's had 22 targets the last 2 weeks combined. It's going his way against this kind of a matchup. Like, wouldn't they want him to get right? Like, let's just say they are blowing him out. Don't you use this as a get right spot? You take some home run shots downfield. And it might be for
does he even do that, though? Does he even go downfield anymore?
Yeah, he does. The problem is they haven't – look at the games they've been playing. And that was Baltimore. That's a tough defenses. An outdoor stadium. Now you got Dallas in a dome. I mean, this is the best possible.
Tennessee also. Yep, absolutely.
You know, and it's just I would love to take advantage of it. And even with all of that, with them not throwing as much in Pittsburgh and the numbers being down, it's so strange to see the ownership like this, because if we knew Deontay Johnson, if he wasn't coming off a 1-catch week where he missed like seven offensive possessions, he might be like, you might have seen him put up 25 again, and he might be, 30% owned this week. Instead, he's going to be, 8% owned, 10% owned at the most? I really like Deontay Johnson, and I really like Juju, and I really like Claypool. So I will be mixing in these receivers with the other guys who I already mentioned, with a lot of the chalk that I do like. And I really, really can't – if Juju Smith-Schuster was to put up 35 fantasy points, because I talk about this every week, if he did it this week, I would have to lose my mind, because you're going to see like 0.01% ownership on it. He's going to be completely unthought of. And he could have 10 catches for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's really on the table. So that's where I'm at.
If you wanted to do something in the I always say this, in like the afternoon slate or something like that.
Edgar Wilson?
Yep.
I like it.
Yep. He's always in my head, because every week you kind of throw, well, maybe Cedric Wilson. So he's always like kind of in my head. And this is like just a perfect garbage game where they could be just done.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh will stop playing defense too, and Cedric Wilson, they'll get him in there, and he'll be trying. And all you need is one, man. He's like one catch out of him for 50 yards.
You're really right about that, but shouldn't we be thinking differently? Like, I mean, I'm just looking at it now, and I don't like this. I think Pittsburgh's defense is freaking awesome. I really do. I think I said they've been the best team I've watched play football all year. No, it's not because they're undefeated. But what about these receivers for Dallas? Like, they're going to have to throw the ball. And just on PPR numbers alone, even no matter who's throwing the ball, Amari Cooper could end up, with one of those target games. You know what I mean?
First of all, I just would like to say that Ezekiel Elliott is 6,600. I just
unowned, right?
I thought I would let you know that he's.
Oh wow, and I know
he used to be 30% owned at 9,500, like not all that long ago.
At home too.
And it's rough out there, and he's limited. He was more limited at practice than expected, but he's feeling better. And I don't know who's starting a quarterback for Dallas. Gilbert Rush or whatever.
Gilbert Gottfried, whatever his name is.
Gilbert Gottfried. I mean, I don't know.
What does it matter? Like, you know what I mean? It's so what? These guys got to the NFL somehow. You can throw the ball.
I don't even mean that. I mean, what's the first thing he's going to do is look for freaking Zeke flaring out of the backfield.
No, of course. I just think that Pittsburgh's defense, that's why I like the passing game, because Pittsburgh's defense, I'm guessing, is going to not be like totally.
Think so?
And the fact
figure that out.
Pittsburgh also blitzes like more than like 60% of the time or whatever they've been doing this year. They're probably going to do it a lot more in this game. So you're going to have opportunities for big plays. You're also going to have, I mean, Gallup, Lamb, and Cooper should be in consideration, I guess, along to run back with those Pittsburgh guys, because I really do think that just on targets alone, like, last week it was Gallup with all the targets, you know what I mean? But it could go a different way. They're so cheap, and there's so much upside if they get in the end zone even once. It's hard to just ignore them, right? Like, I'm gonna reiterate. I'm gonna make the point this way. So you're not exactly doing great, but you're not dead either. As you near the end of the 1 o'clock games, got a shot, but you need a miracle. You need whatever. And you've got a freaking chalky Chase Edmonds in your lineup at 6,800, okay? And you swap to Zeke at 6,600 at a fraction of the ownership. Yeah.
And you win the $1 million you win. You could just say to your grandchildren and all over Twitter that Chase Edmonds was 6,800 and Zeke Elliott was 6,600 at 5% ownership.
Crazy.
Just saying.
No, it's crazy. And you know what? The same thing is somewhat true for James Conner, too. So I'm with you here, man. All right. You want to just real quick before we get out of here, just want to highlight any, I guess we sort of talked about your favorite game stacks, but you just want to sort of remind the people.
Yeah. So my favorite game stacks are going to be the Seattle Buffalo game. That's going to be somewhat chalky. I guess just judging from your reaction to it, I guess the lowest owned of the ones I mentioned might be the Atlanta side, the Atlanta passing game. So I like the Atlanta. Before we forget, Kansas City we like also. And then in the later games, I'll tell you that if the Miami-Arizona game is somehow, how do I say, unowned, but less owned than the Vegas game, I mean, this is what I look. Derek Carr's in the game. So if Derek Carr's in the game, I don't think you could have like a 70-point outcome. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's going to be 35-30, where I really do think this Arizona-Miami game can go freaking ballistic.
Yeah.
I just do. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but if that game's at 35-32, and you have, for example, Preston Williams and Parker at cheap price, I mean, you're going to want to have that, I think. So,
yeah.
Those are my, I guess, so my key games, Miami, Arizona. I got to end up liking that, aren't I? So Miami, Arizona, the chalky Seattle, Buffalo, and then Kansas City, and then Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree with all of those ones. The only one I separate, I'm not going to have, I won't have the Atlanta quarterback at all. I won't have Ryan, but I will have some pieces of that. I just think that the Minnesota Detroit is kind of sneaky to me. And then I also like the Chargers offense a lot. So that's where I'm at adding to that. Sheets, I think we covered it all. This was I feel like I started a little shaky, but we got our rhythm going, or at least I got my rhythm going a little bit. You were steady as can be as usual. Do you have any bold prediction before we leave?
Yeah. Okay, so the Sheets terrible take, so to speak. I'll go back to it. I'll go Tua Tagovailoa 5 touchdown passes.
I love that. Oh, now I'm going to have to get that sack in there. But I'm going to play him with Vasecki then. All right, I'm going to say that one of the Pittsburgh receivers scores 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, and there you have it.
There you go. And any of those, that'll put them on the winning lineup if you ask me. I'm pretty sure about that. All right, guys. For Sheets, anything else before we leave?
Nope, we're good.
For Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck out there, everybody, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.
Good luck.